I have a huge confession to make about exercise. I'm a registered nurse, and I know how important physical activity is for health. I have seen the data on movement and cardiovascular health, metabolic function, mental health, longevity. I have counseled patients about the importance of exercise, and I have spent portions of my adult life not exercising the way I should. Not because I didn't care, because I was tired, because I had two boys who needed things, because I worked 12-hour shifts on my feet, and the idea of doing more physical activity afterward felt genuinely unhinged. Because the fitness world made it feel like if you weren't doing it a certain way for a certain amount of time with a certain level of intensity, it didn't count. And that is a lie I want to dismantle today. I'm Amanda, a registered nurse, single mom to two boys, and the face behind Holistically Blessed. This week, we are talking about movement, what the research actually says, what kind of movement actually matters, what I personally do, and how doTERRA oils have become a part of how I support my body through physical activity. No gym required, no program to buy. Let's get started. Let me start with the science, because I think the actual research is far more encouraging than the fitness world lets on. The most significant health gains from physical activity occur when a person moves from completely sedentary to moderately active. That jump from nothing to some movement is physiologically enormous. It reduces cardiovascular disease risk, improves metabolic markers, supports mental health, and increases longevity in ways that are well documented. The jump from moderate to elite fitness, also beneficial, but far smaller in terms of basic health impact than the initial shift from zero to something. This matters because it means the bar for meaningful movement is far lower than the fitness industry suggests. You do not need to be running marathons. You do not need to hit specific heart rate zones for specific durations. You need to be regularly, consistently more active than sitting still. Walking has some of the most robust research support of any exercise modality for longevity, cardiovascular health, blood sugar regulation, and mental health. It is accessible, sustainable, low injury risk, and deeply underrated. A 30-minute walk most days of the week produces measurable health benefits. This is not a consolation prize. This is elite exercise for most of our actual health goals. Resistance training, even light resistance, even body weight, is increasingly recognized as critically important as we age, particularly for women. It preserves muscle mass that we naturally begin to lose in our 30s, supports bone density, improves metabolism, and reduces the risk of injury. You do not need a barbell. Squats in your living room count. An incidental movement, taking stairs, parking farther away, standing during phone calls, walking while talking, accumulates across the day in ways that genuinely contribute to overall activity levels. It is not a replacement for intentional exercise, but it is not nothing either. This is a framework, not complicated, not expensive, accessible to almost everyone. Let me break down the types of movement your body actually needs, and I promise none of these require a gym. First up is cardiovascular movement, something that elevates your heart rate, such as walking, swimming, dancing in your kitchen, chasing your 9-year-old in the backyard. All of these count. The goal is elevated heart rate for a sustained period most days. The specific activity matters far less than the consistency. Second is resistance or strength work. This is the category most women underprioritize, and it is increasingly important as we age. Body weight squats, push-ups, lunges, resistance bands, all of these build and preserve the muscle that protects your metabolism, your bones, and your joints. Aim for 2 to 3 times a week. 15 minutes is enough to start. And third is flexibility and mobility. Stretching, yoga, foam rolling, these support joint health, reduce injury risk, and have a genuinely calming effect on the nervous system. This is also where essential oils integrate beautifully, which we'll talk about in a moment. And fourth, intentional rest and recovery. I want to say this clearly. Rest days are not failed workout days. They are part of the program. Your muscles rebuild during rest. Your nervous system recovers during rest. If you are regularly moving your body, rest is not optional. It is the completion of the work. You do not need to do all four of these perfectly every week. You need to do more of them than you're currently doing, with more consistency than you currently manage, with more grace than you typically give yourself. Start with one, build from there. That is the whole strategy. Let me tell you what movement actually looks like in my life, because I think real examples are more useful than ideal ones. On shift days, I walk thousands of steps before most people have their second cup of coffee. Nursing is physically demanding work. On these days, surviving the shift and getting home safely is my movement practice. Full stop, no guilt attached. On days off, I try and do something intentional. Sometimes that is 20-minute neighborhood walk while I listen to a podcast or talk to a friend. Sometimes it's a 15-minute body weight circuit in my living room because that is what I have and I am choosing to use it. Sometimes, and I will say this without shame, it is genuinely just stretching on my bedroom floor for 10 minutes because my body asked for that and nothing more. I do not have a gym membership right now. I have not had one consistently for years. I have a neighborhood, a living room, a set of resistance bands, and a commitment to showing up for my body in whatever way I can on any given day. What I have found works. Short and consistent beats long and sporadic every single time. The 20-minute walk I do 4 days a week produces more health benefit than the hour-long workout I do once a month when I'm feeling motivated. Consistency is the mechanism. Duration is secondary. I want to be honest about something else. There have been seasons when I barely move at all. Seasons of burnout and depletion when exercise felt like more demand on the body that had nothing left. And in those seasons, I extended myself grace and focused on other pillars: sleep, nutrition, stress management, until I had enough in reserve to add intentional movement back in. That is not failure. That is wisdom. Your body keeps a holistic ledger. Let me talk about movement in our house, because I think this is one of the most practical things I can share. My 9-year-old is probably one of the most active people in my home by a significant margin. He runs, he plays soccer, he swims in the summer. He has discovered a love for climbing anything that can be climbed and jumping off of anything that is approximately jump-offable. He does not think of it as exercise. He thinks of it as any other day. And that is actually the ideal relationship with movement. Children in the 9 to 10-year range naturally move the way human bodies are designed to, with variety, enthusiasm, and no concept of workout versus not workout. Watching him has reminded me that movement doesn't need to be serious to be beneficial. He has also started joining me when I do bodyweight circuits, not because I asked him to, but because he saw me doing something that looked like it might be fun and he wanted in. He now does push-ups next to me and corrects my form with complete confidence and zero actual knowledge. And I let him. It is the most joyful workout I have. My 16-year-old is an entire different story, and I am honestly so proud of where he is. He is athletic, he plays sports, and he has developed a genuinely disciplined approach to his own training. He researches his programming, he thinks about his nutrition in relation to his performance, he manages his recovery protocol, including his doTERRA oils. He uses peppermint or wild orange before training for energy and focus, and deep blue on sore muscles after hard sessions. He figured out a lot of this himself through observation and genuine curiosity about his own body. At 16, he understands that rest is part of the program. He understands that what he eats affects how he performs. He is building habits around his physical health that I genuinely believe will carry him for decades. And I get to watch it. It is one of my favorite things about being his mom. Both boys are growing into their physical selves in ways that make me grateful. And in modeling that movement is something we can do because we value our bodies, not to punish them or prove anything, has been one of the most important things I've quietly done in our home. Let me talk about how I use doTERRA specifically in relation to movement, because I think this is one of the most genuinely useful applications of essential oils in our daily life. Before exercise, it's all about energy and focus. I reach for peppermint most mornings before a walk or a workout. The menthol compound has documented effects on alertness and perceived energy. I apply a drop to my chest and take a few slow, deep breaths before I start. My 16-year-old does the same before his training sessions. Wild orange is my other go-to here. Diffused or applied to the wrist for that documented mood brightening, energizing, de-limonene effect. During longer activity, it's all about breath and endurance. Breathe diffused or applied to the chest supports the respiratory system during sustained cardio. I use this on longer walks or any activity that involves sustained breathing effort. After exercise, it's all about recovery. Deep Blue is the oil I reach for without question after any workout that challenged my muscles. This is doTERRA's soothing blend, filled with wintergreen, camphor, peppermint, ylang ylang, helichrysum, blue tansy, blue chamomile, and osmanthus. The documented soothing properties of wintergreen's menthol ciliate are well established. I apply diluted to sore muscles after a demanding shift or a hard workout session. My 16-year-old keeps Deep Blue in his soccer bag. Copaiba for recovery and inflammation support is something I have increasingly used after particularly hard physical days. Its beta-carphenol content has anti-inflammatory properties that research is continuing to support. My RN reminder, these oils support your movement practice. They do not replace warming up, cooling down, adequate hydration, or appropriate rest. They work best as part of a complete movement and recovery approach. I want to dedicate a specific section for walking because I think it is one of the most significantly undervalued forms of exercise available. Walking has robust research support for cardiovascular health. Multiple large-scale studies have shown that regular walking, even at moderate pace, significantly reduces the risk of heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and certain cancers. It is far more effective as more intense exercise for many of these outcomes when matched for energy expenditure. Walking supports mental health. Research consistently shows that outdoor walking, in particular, natural light, natural exposure, rhythmic movement, reduces cortisol levels, improves mood, and supports the kind of low-level parasympathetic nervous system activation that counteracts the chronic stress most of us are carrying. Walking after a meal specifically helps regulate blood sugar. A 10-minute walk after eating has been shown to reduce post-meal glucose spikes more effectively than a 30-minute walk at other times of day. This is simple, accessible intervention for anyone working on metabolic health. And walking is sustainable. Unlike high-intensity programs that people start and abandon because they're too demanding for real schedules, most people can walk. Most schedules have 20 minutes in them somewhere. Most neighborhoods are walkable in some way, shape, or form. The injury rate is low. The barrier to entry is essentially zero. I walk around the work parking lot a lot. I walk during phone calls. I walk on my lunch break when I get one. I park farther away with intention. I take the stairs, and I do not apologize for calling any of this exercise because it is. If you do nothing else this week, go for a 20-minute walk tomorrow morning. That is the assignment. Everything else can come later. I want to close with the faith framework that genuinely changed how I approach movement because I think it liberates this whole conversation from the two traps most women fall into. Trap number 1, exercise as punishment or debt payment. I ate that, so I have to work it off. I missed my workout, so I'm a failure. I don't deserve to rest until I've burned enough. This is a shame and debt relationship with exercise, and it is both psychologically harmful and physiologically counterproductive. Chronic cortisol from guilt and self-punishment literally impairs recovery. Trap number 2, exercise as identity and achievement. The gym as status, fitness as performance, working out as proof of discipline, worth, and superiority. This is what 1 Timothy 4:8 is directly addressing. Physical training is of some value, not supreme value, some value. Keep it in its place. The framework I try to hold instead is movement as stewardship and great gratitude. I move my body because I have a body that can move, and not everybody does. I move because the nursing research tells me it protects this body and this brain that I need to care for my patients and my boys. I move because it is an act of saying, Lord, you gave me this. I want to honor it. That is a fundamentally different motivation than shame or achievement, and it produces a fundamentally different relationship with exercise, one that's sustainable, grace-filled, and rooted in something that holds when motivation fails. On the days you don't feel like moving, go for a walk and let it be an act of gratitude. That is enough. It is always enough. Here's your assignment from this video. One movement this week that you haven't been doing. Just one. A daily walk, a 15-minute body circuit, 10 minutes of stretching in the morning. Whatever gap exists in your current movement practice, close it with one consistent thing this week. Consistent and simple beats ambitious and sporadic every time. If this video was helpful, give it a thumbs up. It genuinely helps this channel reach more women who need permission to start where they are. Subscribe if you haven't. Leave me a comment below and tell me your one movement commitment for this week. And share this with someone who needs to hear that 20-minute walks count, because they do, and she does too. All the doTERRA oils I mentioned are linked in the description below. I'll see you next week with grace and wellness always.